Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Raisha Sehgal. Our cover story tonight is about how India has now found proof of Pakistan's involvement in the Pahalgam terror attack after investigation revealed that a former Pakistani para-commando was one of the 4 terrorists in the Pahalgam massacre. We will also tell you how there is an unprecedented rise in global military expenditure, with total military spending exceeding $2.7 trillion in 2024. We'll also tell you what caused the Europe power failure. Was it a cyber attack or was it caused by a weather phenomenon? All that and a lot more lined up for you on the show tonight. Let's get you started. It is confirmed without a doubt that Pakistan is guilty of the massacre that occurred in Pahalgam on April 22nd. If it wasn't evident from all the events leading up to that horrific attack on tourists, it is now clear Islamabad has a heavy price to pay. Evidence number 1. Hashim Musa. Who is he? He's a former Pakistani para-commando. He has been identified as one of the 4 terrorists involved in the massacre in Baisaran, Pahalgam. Yes, you heard that right. According to reports, the former Pakistani soldier has been identified as one of the culprits behind the brutal attack on 26 unarmed civilians. The Jammu and Kashmir police identified the terrorists and released sketches. As you can see on your screens right now, 2 of the assailants are Pakistani nationals, while 1 a South Kashmiri resident. And they conducted extensive reconnaissance for the terrorists. The identified terrorists are Hashim Musa, also known as Suleiman, Ali Bhai, alias Talha, both from Pakistan. The third has been identified as Adil Hussain Thokar, a resident of Anantnag. And all 3 have a reward of rupees 20 lakh placed on them. But Hashim Musa, he has been identified as the key conspirator behind the attack. Investigations into the terror conspiracy have confirmed that Musa is a former para-commando of the Pakistan Army's Special Service Group called SSG. According to media reports, Musa is a hardcore terrorist affiliated with the Pakistan-based terrorist organization Lashkarto or LET. Remember, LET is the same outfit that was responsible for the 26/11 Mumbai attacks in 2008. Reports indicate that Musa was sent by LET masterminds to Kashmir on a specific mission, a mission to unleash terror attacks on non-locals as well as Indian security forces. And now, reports also say that it is possible that Musa was loaned to the LET by the Pakistan Special Forces, like the SSG. We know that para-commandos of the SSG are highly trained in unconventional warfare and specialize in covert operations. They are trained at handling sophisticated weapons, hand-to-hand combat and navigation skills. According to Indian reports, Musa's background in the Pakistan Army, which has now been confirmed during the investigation, suggests the involvement of the Pakistani ISI in the attack as well as previous strikes in Kashmir. The investigation is being carried out by India's National Investigation Agency, NIA. The NIA has already reportedly questioned 15 overground workers or OGWs identified as key suspects in the Pahalgam terror attack. And some of the incidents include October 2024 terror attacks in Gagangir, Ganderbal, where several locals and a doctor were killed. And also on the attack at Butapatri in JNK's Baramulla, which resulted in the death of 2 army personnel and 2 army porters. Now, coming back to Musa, he has been emerged as the common perpetrator in these 3 attacks, all these 3 attacks that I just listed out. The local terrorists involved in the Gagangir and Butapatri attacks, which are Junaid Ahmed Bhatt and Arbaz Mir, they both were also trained in Pakistan. But they were then neutralized in different encounters by the Indian security forces in November and December 2024. But Musa seems to have continued with his terrorist mission, and that is to spread terror in the valley to target non-locals in Kashmir. If that wasn't enough, Pakistan-based cyber actors have once again failed in their attempts to breach Indian cyber sovereignty after facing challenges in accessing important national networks. The Pakistani hackers, they have now shifted their focus to welfare and educational websites. Websites of Army Public School Srinagar, Army Welfare Housing Organization and APS Rani Khet. All these schools and organizations also came under cyber attack. But all 4 sites were quickly isolated and restored by the Indian Army's cybersecurity framework with no impact on operational or classified networks. But Pakistan has continued to violate the ceasefire at the line of control for the 5th consecutive day. Pakistan has resorted to unprovoked firing. The firing since last Friday now seems to have spread from Kashmir to Jammu region as well. And this is hardly a surprise to us. Pakistan has a long history of exporting terror and denying its involvement. Who can forget when all of this started? In 1947-1948, Pakistan sent tribal raiders into the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir back then, triggering the first of 4 Indo-Pakistani wars. Then, during the 1971 Indo-Pakistan War, which broke out during the Bangladesh Liberation War, the paramilitary wing Al-Shams was involved in atrocities against Bengali nationalists, civilians and religious and ethnic minorities alongside the Pakistan Army. The hard fact is that the Pakistani establishment has aided and abated terror for generations, and each time, despite the evidence, it has brazenly denied its role. And now it's high time for Pakistan to answer to the global community. Why do terror groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Toiba continue to roam freely in Pakistan? All their leaders do is engage in warmongering despite knowing that Pakistan has lost all wars with India in the past. Which brings us back to the situation we are facing today in Kashmir. The Indian forces have intensified anti-terror operations. Raids have been conducted across several locations to target terrorist hideouts and individuals connected to terror activities. The investigation into the Pahalgam terror attack has reportedly revealed the involvement of a local network of OGWs and terror facilitators in South Kashmir who guided these terrorists to attack 26 unarmed civilians. And it seemed to have been arranged their logistics as well, including shelter and possibly transportation for the weapons used in the attack. Along with the confirmation of the roles of the Pakistani terrorists, the Indian probe agencies, they're also questioning OGWs, and all this suggests the involvement of more Pakistani terrorists. Reports also indicate that the coming operations in the jungles surrounding Baisaran, where the attack took place, have reached an advanced stage. The Indian officials have just started, and in the coming days, more evidence of Pakistan's involvement will come out, and we will be closely watching. Pakistan must pay for Pahalgam terror attack. That's the message from the political establishment to Indian military. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given the Indian military might with a clear, uncompromising directive. According to top government sources, the Prime Minister told the defence brass that the armed forces now have complete operational freedom to decide the mode, targets and timing of retaliation against terrorism. This comes during Prime Minister Modi's high-stakes meeting with Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan and all the tri-service chiefs. Prime Minister Modi affirmed that India's national resolve is to deal a crushing blow to terror following the Pahalgam massacre that left 26 people dead. The Prime Minister's order delivers in razor-sharp terms, signals a major shift in India's counter-terror strategy, no longer constrained by bureaucratic red tape. The military is now empowered to strike with precision and ferocity against terror networks and their state sponsors. Prime Minister Modi's message is unambiguous. India will no longer tolerate Pakistan's dirty work of harboring terrorists. With cross-border firing intensifying and cyber attacks surging, the armed forces are ready to deliver a response that, in Prime Minister Modi's words, inflicts punishment beyond imagination on the perpetrators.
India will identify, track and punish every terrorist and their backers. India's spirit will never be broken by terrorism. Everyone who believes in humanity is with us.
Well, if there's one thing Pakistan cannot deny or ignore, it's that its economy is in big trouble. The signs are flashing red. If it ever needed a wake-up call about the cost of exporting terror, it is now. In response to the Pahalgam terror attack, India has taken several big punitive steps, including halting bilateral trade with Pakistan, expelling Pakistani officials from its High Commission, cancelling visas under the SAARC exemption scheme and suspending the Indus Waters Treaty. All these measures will put additional pressure on Pakistan's economic recovery plans. Experts warn that the impact of all these actions could lead to rising inflation once again in Pakistan. Pakistan's central bank is predicting an annual average inflation rate of 5.5% to 7.5%. That's for the fiscal year ending in June 2025. Already, prices for basic food items have surged. Reports say that the price of rice has skyrocketed to 340 rupees per kilogram. Chicken has reached 800 rupees per kilogram. The end of India-Pakistan trade, it may only worsen this situation. The IMF, on which Pakistan is heavily reliant, has cut the country's growth forecast down to 2.6% from 3% in January. What's more, a recent World Bank report warns that over 10 million people in Pakistan could face extreme food insecurity and starvation this year. And that's due to poor climatic conditions affecting key crops. Halting trade with India could result in shortages of essential medicines as well as healthcare, further endangering daily life in Pakistan. Now, India exports a large quantity of essential medicines, fruits, vegetables, poultry feed and dry fruits to Pakistan. In 2024, Pakistan imported nearly $305 million worth of goods from India, with health-related goods making up a substantial share. The suspension of all these imports could spell disaster for hospitals and pharmacies across Pakistan and also lead to further shortages of these items, which will only make life harder for Pakistanis. And the stock market's reaction has been immediate. Just days after the Pahalgam attack, the Karachi 100 index fell by over 2%, indicating investor pessimism amid rising tensions. The long-term consequences, well, experts warn that while attacks like the one in Pahalgam are tragically common, India's swift and severe response could be a potential turning point. It's because the ramifications are dire for Pakistan, a country already grappling with severe economic constraints and also a high fiscal deficit of 7.4% of GDP. In a retaliatory move, Pakistan has also closed its airspace to Indian carriers. However, this decision could majorly impact its own aviation revenues, as history has shown that such actions often lead to financial losses for Pakistan itself. Pakistan is already facing daunting challenges under a cloud of internal unrest and external conflicts. And it's only getting worse for the ordinary citizens, for the Pakistanis, and that is the real cost of exporting terrorism. All right, shifting our focus, global military spending reached a new peak in 2024, totaling a little over $2.7 trillion, and this marks an increase of 9.4% than what was in 2023. A latest report by the Stockholm International Peace Research, SIPRI, a leading think tank, suggests that over 100 countries spent more on the military than in the previous year. However, this is not a new event per se, with military spending rising steadily worldwide over the past 10 years. But 2024 is different, as it saw the most rapid rise within a single year. That's since the Cold War era. What explains this? Why are countries ramping up the military expenditure? 2024 is the year which has seen conflicts intensifying and wars breaking out in various parts of the world, especially in Europe and West Asia, areas which report a major increase in spending, be it the war in Ukraine or the crisis along the Gaza Strip. Much of money was shelled out in procuring arms and ammunition and fortifying indigenous defense capabilities. The SIPRI report lists out top 5 military spenders, namely the United States of America, China, Russia, Germany, accounting for 60% of the global total. Well, India also features in the same list, sharing a 3.2% share of the total spending in 2024. The same report also outlines the fact that India's military spending in 2024 was nearly 9 times that of Pakistan's expenditure. As per SIPRI, India's expenditure grew by 1.6% to $86.1 billion, which is nearly 9 times that of Pakistan's spending, which spent $10.2 billion. Now, coming to the global superpowers, US and China. It's no secret that China has been flexing its military muscle by upgrading its armed forces and also expanding its nuclear arsenal. As per the report, it ramped up its budget by 7% to an estimated $314 billion. What's more, China accounts for a chunk of military spending in the East Asia region as well, bearing nearly half of all expenditure in Asia. However, with all its measures in place, China is yet to topple the United States of America as the world's top spender on its military. Now, in 2024, US spent $997 billion in its armed forces, a clear indicator that America remains committed to modernizing its military in a bid to maintain one-upmanship over Russia and China. Well, as far as Europe is concerned now, Germany has contributed majorly to all the developments by far. It is the largest defense spender in Europe as the continent rearms to meet threats. In the current standing, Germany ranks 4th as a spender, up from the 7th place in 2023. And the signs are as clear as day. Given the provision of special funds for strengthening its armed forces, recently, Germany has vowed that it will step up military role in NATO amid increased uncertainty.
Recently, the German parliament changed the constitution to massively increase its defense spending. This is remarkable. Another clear demonstration of German leadership. There was a time when NATO wanted to keep the Germans down, as NATO's first Secretary General famously said. Not anymore. The Germans are up. And this is exactly what we need in the face of greater danger.
And not just Germany, high defense budgets have been observed all across Europe, with countries like Poland, Sweden bucking up in the previous year thanks to the war in Ukraine, now in its 3rd year and sees no signs of slowing down anytime soon, coupled with massive investments on defense and military aid. In West Asia, Israel stands out, raising its military spending by 65% to $46.5 billion in 2024. The reasons are far more obvious. The war in Gaza, an escalated conflict with Hezbollah. Given the current world order fraught with geopolitical shifts and uncertainty, every nation is putting its best foot forward to have its tracks covered should it come under attack in near future. As new conflict zones are suspected to emerge in the coming days, countries across Asia, Europe are bracing themselves for a deadly arms race, and reports like this only throws a much-needed spotlight on who has an upper hand. In other news, a $60 million Navy fighter jet fell from USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier as it veered to avoid fire from the Houthis. This comes as the Yemen-based Houthis continue to hit back at American forces despite relentless attack by the United States of America. Our next story takes a closer look at the cost of war and the rising fatalities in Yemen. Take a look.
Under the cover of night, US fighter jets roar off the decks of aircraft carriers. Laden with missiles destined for Yemen. American fighter jets have been pounding Houthi targets. Missiles from US aircraft carriers have been targeting Yemen. Since March 15th, over 800 Houthi targets have been struck. Yet the Iran-backed rebels remain undeterred. The Iran-backed fighters continue to down US drones and launch ballistic missiles towards Israel, showcasing a resilience that questions the efficacy of America's military strategy. The finance toll is staggering. 7 MQ-9 Reaper drones, each valued at $30 million, have been lost near Yemen since mid-March. Now an FA-18E Super Hornet worth approximately $60 million lost in the Red Sea during a towing mishap aboard the USS Harry S. Truman. The exact details of the turn the Truman made to avoid the Houthi fire have not been released. This incident marks the second Super Hornet loss for the Truman strike group, following a friendly fire incident in December. In February, the Truman collided with a merchant ship near Egypt. No injuries were reported. US Navy carriers are the world's largest warships at nearly 1,100 feet long. They have a displacement of almost 100,000 tons. Beyond the monetary costs, the human toll is rising. A US missile strike in Sada reportedly killed at least 68 African migrants and injured dozens more, drawing international condemnation.
Yemen's Houthi rebels have alleged that a U.S. airstrike has hit a prison in Yemen, killing at least 68 people there. This prison was housing African migrants, and Ethiopians and others from East Africa long have used Yemen as a route to get into Saudi Arabia for work.
Despite claims of targeting Houthi infrastructure, civilian casualties have mounted, fueling criticism of the US campaign's precision and objectives. The Houthis, far from being subdued, have intensified their operations. They've launched ballistic missiles at Israel.
In response to this aggression and its crimes against civilians, the Yemeni armed forces targeted the American aircraft carrier Truman and its accompanying warships, engaging them in a joint operation carried out by the naval forces, the drone air force, and the missile force. The operation involved several cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and drones over the past hours.
Despite the relentless air campaign, the Houthis are still a fighting force, downing drones, launching missiles, and surviving the world's most advanced military onslaught. The Red Sea chaos has exposed the limits of American might and the staggering price of war with no end in sight. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Let's tell you what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. We will tell you how financial crisis has hit Bangladesh after Mohammed Yunus decided not to issue previously printed notes which featured the image of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. From Canada, we will tell you what Mark Carney's victory as the new Prime Minister means for India. Will Carney's return to power result in resetting of India-Canada ties? And finally, we will tell you about Vaibhav Suryavanshi. You must have heard that name at least once since yesterday. At the age of 14, he has become the youngest player ever to score a century in men's T20 cricket. Spain and Portugal switched their power back on after the worst blackout in their history, as both the countries seek answers on what caused the biggest ever blackout. Spain has set up a commission to probe the matter. The announcement comes as the country's top criminal court announced a probe into possible sabotage of critical infrastructure. Our next story, looking at various scenarios forward by experts as a possible cause behind the major power outage. Take a look.
Attention all passengers. We inform that there are no flights scheduled.
It felt like the opening scene of a dystopian sci-fi thriller. Planes grounded, trains frozen on the tracks, mobile networks dead,
No internet?
massive traffic jams, and chaos. Lights flickered out across Spain, Portugal and parts of southern France, leaving millions staring at dead screens, blinking traffic lights and gridlocked cities. No, this wasn't fiction. This was Europe's terrifying reality on Monday.
And got to the airport at Porto, and then there was a big shutdown, all the power went, and then eventually got on board the plane and then realized it was a big outage.
Everything started to stop. We went to the Globo website, Brazilian media, and we read it was happening all over Europe, out of control. We didn't know what to do. We are here waiting. I've been here since 5 p.m. in the afternoon without knowing what to do. The airline changed the flight for later. Let's see, we need to wait. It's in God's hands.
In an age where satellites beam internet from space and AI powers your morning playlist, the continent was brought to its knees by something as old-fashioned as power failure. The blackout was massive. Entire cities lost electricity supply, plunging into darkness. Tens of thousands of passengers stranded. Madrid's metro train stopped mid-tunnel. Emergency services scrambled. Even air traffic control systems were rattled.
We were eating. Suddenly the light went out. Well, we thought it was something specific in the neighborhood, but they tell us the metro has stopped. We start getting WhatsApp saying, "Do you have power?"
Initial whispers feared the worst: a cyber attack, foreign sabotage.
We were working very well. Suddenly, the computer shut down. We thought it was a normal blackout, as it happens sometimes, but then we heard it was a cyber attack.
What we saw was that everyone was saying the same thing. No power, no power. A man passed by in a van and said it was all over Spain, Portugal, and also Belgium was without electricity.
But the truth was more inconvenient than sinister. A rare atmospheric disturbance triggered a cascade failure in the high-voltage grid. And the system, heavily reliant on the delicate balance of renewable energy, couldn't keep up. For now, authorities are not ruling out anything.
Relevant state institutions and all the private operators are working in a coordinated way to understand what has happened. All the potential causes are being analyzed. I insist again, without ruling out any hypothesis, any possibility.
Green power is the future, but Europe just received a brutal reminder that even the future needs a solid foundation. In the rush to phase out fossil fuels and nuclear energy, infrastructure to support renewables hasn't kept pace. For now, power is back and people are cheering. But is there a lesson to be learned in the mega glitch? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
First, there were economic woes, and now a currency crisis. Bangladesh is feeling the pinch, quite literally, as banks struggle to release new currency notes into circulation. This is following the decision of the interim government led by Mohammad Yunus not to issue previously printed notes. And this has left the market reeling and customers suffering big time, owing to a widened gap between demand and supply. Well, the crisis deepened when the central bank ordered all scheduled banks to stop issuing new notes featuring the image of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. As a result, 15,000 crore Bangladeshi taka or $1.2 billion worth of new notes now lie unused in bank vaults across the country. Citizens and businesses are left dealing with torn, dirty and almost unusable currency, with the central bank instructing banks to rely solely on recirculated currency. A nationwide shortage of usable cash has now emerged. Shops are rejecting damaged notes, banks are flooded with complaints, and ATMs are dispensing old and degraded bills. Customers are reporting financial losses and breakdown in daily transactions. The suspension of new note exchanges has caused disruptions in retail and banking operations, straining both consumers and the financial system. Well, according to reports, the decision to withhold fresh notes was made at a high governmental level. Several central bank officials confirmed the move but declined to speak publicly. Meanwhile, experts warn that The mint lacks capacity to cancel and reprint all the currency at once. They urge the government to release the existing printed notes to prevent further economic damage. Well, as the crisis continues, pressure mounts on the interim government to act swiftly and restore monetary stability in Bangladesh.
Carney with 131,674 votes. Wacko Prime Minister.
Canada has a new Prime Minister. Banker turned politician Mark Carney has won the elections in a stunning turnaround. The Liberal Party, led by Carney, secured control of Canada's parliament today. Results show that the Liberals are far ahead of Conservatives, but they have fallen short of 172-seat mark by 4 seats, which means that the Liberals secured 168 seats in the 343-seat House of Commons. Meanwhile, his Conservative rival, Paul Mastermind, is poised to get only 144 seats. Counting is still underway, but it is highly unlikely that the trend will change.
I, Mark Carney, do solemnly and sincerely promise and swear that I will truly and faithfully, and to the best of my skill and knowledge, execute the powers and trust reposed in me as Prime Minister.
This victory marks a massive turnaround for the Liberal Party, which until a few months ago was staring at a defeat under the then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. However, it seems like the accession of Carney and the shadow of US President Donald Trump seems to have played out in the Liberals' favour. But before we tell you what exactly did the new Canadian Prime Minister say about the United States of America, let's first tell you what Carney's win means for India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated Mark Carney for his victory and said that he is looking forward to work together to unlock greater opportunities. The message is clear. India is looking to turn a new leaf in bilateral ties that had nosedived under the former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau after Trudeau accused New Delhi of killing Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar without providing any proof. The sentiment is mutual. During campaigning, Carney emphasized the need to collaborate with like-minded countries like India and emphasized that rebuilding ties with India was a priority for his government, describing it as an incredibly important relationship. Meanwhile, Jagmeet Singh, who led Canada's opposition New Democratic Party in this election, has lost his own seat. Conceding defeat, Singh announced that he plans to step down from the position of party leader.
Our old relationship with the United States, a relationship based on steadily increasing integration, is over. The system of open global trade.
Well, that was Mike Carney, but we were talking about Jagmeet Singh. Jagmeet Singh is known to be a pro-Khalistani leader. He has been a vocal supporter of Khalistani politics. He also emerged as a prominent figure backing Trudeau in accusing India without any proof of involvement in the death of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. His defeat is also being seen as a welcome chance for India and Canada to reset diplomatic and trade ties. And talking about trade ties, yesterday we told you how Trump emerged as the X factor in the Canadian polls. And now let's tell you what the Canadian Prime Minister said on Canada-US ties after winning the polls.
Our old relationship with the United States, a relationship based on steadily increasing integration, is over. The system of open global trade, anchored by the United States, a system that Canada has relied on since the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped deliver prosperity for a country for decades is over. But it's also our new reality.
And that was Carney's first speech after the election victory, and he clearly outlined how the era of integration between Canada and the US is over. US President Donald Trump's tariffs and threats of annexing Canada stood as the central issue in the elections. Trump inserted himself into the race early in the day with a social media post saying Canada would face zero tariffs if it becomes the cherished 51st state. Poilievre hit back firmly and said, Trump, stay out of our election. Carney also weighed in saying that this is Canada and we decide what happens here. All right, US President Donald Trump began his second term at the Oval Office at a very fast pace. From reshaping America's ties with Russia to declaring a trade war with China. The world is feeling the impact of US President's 100 days in the White House. Trump has used his presidential pen more than any other US president in modern history. He has signed a record 140 executive orders during his first 100 days in office, including 36 of them in his first week at the White House itself. When Trump took oath as the 47th President of the United States of America, he promised that the decline of America is over. He vowed that Americans will get access to cheaper goods. Inflation in US has been falling since a peak of 9.1% in 2022. It was at 3% in January, the month Trump was inaugurated, and 2.4% in March. Trump claims he has solved the inflation crisis. However, the Federal Reserve warned that the president's tariff plans will most likely lead to higher prices by taxing foreign imports. Republican leader also promised to launch a mass deportation drive to expel all illegal migrants from the country. Reports suggest that the number of immigration arrests at workplaces has tripled since Trump took office. So far, he has sent over 200 Venezuelan migrants who Trump's administration accuses of belonging to Tren de Aragua criminal gang to a prison in El Salvador. Now, during his campaign trail, Trump promised peace between Russia and Ukraine merely by winning the election. He even claimed that he would end the war in 24 hours. Even though Trump's administration has not been able to put an end to the war, US President was able to mediate an energy ceasefire between the two nations. Trump did not wait to return to the White House before threatening China, Canada, and Mexico with sweeping tariffs. While Trump has repeatedly pulled back from brink of an all-out economic war with most countries, China is the only exception. US tariffs on Chinese goods stand at 245%. Trump also promised to pardon Capitol Hill rioters, and so far, US President has issued more than 1,500 pardons or commutations to people convicted in connection to the January 6th attack on Capitol Hill. While we are on with the US, Republican lawmakers are seeking to give US President Donald Trump broad powers to charge and increased fees to migrants seeking asylum in America. The Republicans propose charging asylum seekers $1,000 per application at least, and $550 for being authorized as employees in the US. And this is among a slew of new immigration charges which are under consideration as the Republican Party seeks to translate Trump's agenda into a law. As a part of fresh proposals, Republicans also want to impose a giant fee of $8,500 for anyone wanting to sponsor a child to get them out of federal custody. Not just that, also in the pipelines are a $1,000 fee for parolees and a $1,500 charge for applying to adjust status to get a green card in front of an immigration judge. According to the latest figures from the Office of Homeland Security, in 2023, around 54,000 foreign nationals were granted asylum in the US. And in countries where the immigrants came from, such as Afghanistan and Venezuela, affording the asylum fees would be a mammoth task, given the time and effort spent. That's to arrange that much amount, $1,000. Experts suggest that this hefty fee amount, it might act as a deterrent to those keeping in mind that they have to cross the border illegally, keeping in mind the huge cost that they have to pay should they want to live and work in the US. And this is just one of the proposals made by the GOP as a part of the Trump agenda, which also includes tax cuts, immigration curbs and energy, as well as raised funding for immigration and customs enforcement. And the bill, if passed, would mean refugees would be charged to apply for asylum first time in US history, a procedure which used to be cost-free. Needless to say, this is a part of Trump's border crackdown measures and his bid to fast-track mass deportation just ahead of his completing 100 days at the White House. Measures such as these only seek to firm Trump's resolve of an overhaul. The highest members of clergy are ready to appoint the successor of Pope Francis in a secret ballot procedure. How is the Pope selected, and why is the race to become the sovereign of Vatican highly unpredictable? Our next report telling you more.
Catholic cardinals are set to elect Pope Francis's successor at a grand conclave. The conclave could have opened as early as May 5th, but the cardinals gave themselves 2 more days to speak in more informal sessions that include cardinals over age 80. The College of Cardinals that will elect a new pope includes members from far-flung corners of the globe whom Francis named over his 12-year papacy. The race to become the next pope is laced with uncertainty, mainly because Pope chose 80% of these cardinals with varying backgrounds and different political ideologies, with some being conservatives and the others being liberal.
We talked about it with the family when we walked here to the Vatican, and we hope it will be a pope from Asia or Africa. Catholicism is growing over there, and we believe it can be a support for the people over there when there will be an African or an Asian pope.
135 cardinals will secretly vote to decide on the next head of the 1.4 billion member church. As a first step, Vatican has closed the Sistine Chapel, where the voting will take place. A 2/3 majority is traditionally required to elect a new pope, and voting continues until this threshold is met. Randomly selected cardinals oversee the votes, cast via secret ballots. After each round, the ballots are burned with chemicals producing either black or white smoke, signaling to the world the outcome. Black smoke represents that no decision has been made, while white smoke means a new pope has been elected. Once the pope is chosen, a top cardinal announces his name from St. Peter's Basilica. What's interesting is that this process can take hours or even days.
I believe this will be a fairly quick conclave, in the sense that the cardinals, I think and hope, will agree fairly quickly on the name of the future pope. This would also be a beautiful sign of harmony and unity.
The longest modern conclaves in 1903 and 1922 each stretched to 5 days. While the duration of this secret voting remains a mystery, what's certain is the appointment of 266th successor of the Roman Catholic Church.
Vaibhav Suryavanshi, you must have heard that name by now. At just 14 years and 32 days old, he has rewritten T20 cricket history. Vaibhav has become the youngest player ever to score a century in men's T20 cricket. He had already sent a warning shot to the world when he launched the very first ball he faced in the IPL into the stands. And now, in just his third match in one of the biggest T20 leagues on the planet, Vaibhav has done the unthinkable. A century of pure brilliance and a record-breaking one at that. He is now the youngest to score a 50 in IPL history, breaking the record set by his teammate Ryan Parag, who was nearly 3 years older. And Vaibhav's 50 came off just 17 balls, the fastest in the IPL season, bettering Lucknow's Nicholas Puran by a single delivery. The 14-year-old lit up the Savai Man Singh Stadium in Jaipur with his explosive batting and reached 3 figures in just 35 balls. That is the second fastest century in IPL history, only behind Chris Gale, who scored 8 in 30 balls. But he did become the fastest Indian centurion in IPL history, the youngest centurion ever in the IPL, and the second youngest centurion in all recorded representative cricket. His record-breaking innings helped Rajasthan defeat Gujarat Titans by 8 wickets. Vaibhav looks one of a kind, but cricket's history is filled with prodigies who evolved into legends. Sachin Tendulkar made his debut at just 16 and went on to become the game's greatest. Then Ricky Ponting, who made his Tasmania debut at 16, captained Australia to 2 World Cup victories. Rashid Khan at 17. Revolutionized Afghanistan cricket and the T20 landscape. Noor Ahmed, inspired by Rashid, made his Afghan league debut at 14. He captured global attention and went on to join the BBL and IPL franchises all before his 20th birthday. And now, of course, there is Vaibhav Suryavanshi joining the league. In other news, and in a move set to challenge SpaceX Starlink, Amazon has launched its first set of internet satellites into orbit from Florida, signaling the start of their long-awaited broadband internet network from space. Well, part of the Kuiper Atlas 1 mission, a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket lifted off from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, carrying 27 Kuiper satellites into orbit. The initial launch attempt, set for April 9th, was called off earlier due to bad weather conditions. Project Kuiper, the space-based internet venture of Jeff Bezos' Amazon, is now in a race to catch up with Elon Musk's Starlink. With a $10 billion investment, Amazon aims to launch around 3,200 satellites into low Earth orbit in the coming few years. Although pricing details are still under wraps, Amazon has assured that the pricing of its Kuiper service will be in line with its budget-friendly retail approach. Amazon Satellites is now a part of the expanding collection of spacecraft in low Earth orbit, including Musk's Starlink, Europe's OneWeb, and China's Guangwang constellation. Meanwhile, the growing density of satellites in the orbital region has led experts to voice concerns about congestion, the possibility of collisions, and adverse effects on astronomical viewing. Moreover, the expanding role of private companies in space has also raised thorny political questions, especially with Musk's influence extending beyond business into the political and diplomatic spheres. The UK government is proposing to expand the soft drinks industry levy, commonly known as the sugar tax, to include milk-based drinks such as milkshakes and lattes, as well as plant-based alternatives like oat and rice milk. The move follows concerns over hidden sugars in these drinks, which have so far been exempt from the tax introduced in 2018. Under the new plan, the threshold for sugar content would also be lowered from 5 grams to 4 grams per 100 millimeters, potentially impacting over 200 goods that currently dominate 93% of milk-based drink sales. According to the Treasury, only 3.5% of children's calcium intake comes from milk-based drinks, weakening the case for their exemption. So the government argues that the health risks posed by excess sugar now outweigh the benefits. Since its launch, the levy prompted 89% of soft drinks manufacturers to reformulate their products to stay below the taxable threshold. Officials say extending the levy could further reduce sugar intake and improve children's health outcomes. The announcement has sparked mixed reactions. Supporters, including the National Obesity Forum, they welcome the move as a practical step towards reducing obesity. Critics, however, including the Shadow Chancellor and industry bodies, argue that it will raise costs for families and businesses already under financial pressure. The Food and Drink Federation notes that manufacturers have already cut sugar in soft drinks by 46%. In a span of 5 years, a public consultation is now open and will run until July 21st, giving stakeholders a chance to weigh in on the proposed changes. Well, that's all that we could pack for you in today's edition of Gravitas. We're slipping into a very short break, but we're leaving you with Gravitas Worldview. Thanks very much for staying with us. You are watching WION The World. Stay tuned.
Imagine a world where owning your dream asset is just a click away, where wealth is no longer exclusive to the few. Tokenization, the game changer, transforming assets into digital opportunities. A revolutionary technology opening doors to a new era of investment. Don't miss Token Money Magnet, a bold initiative by Kalp Foundation. Only on WION World is One.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
Catch me on Token Money Magnet, only on WION. for staying with us. This is WION The World is One. We are glad you're watching. Time now for Pulse. I'm American Joker. Let's begin with the headlines. Sources say Prime Minister Narendra Modi grants the Indian Armed Forces complete operational freedom to respond to Pahalgam attack. The decision comes during a high-level meeting at the Prime Minister's residence in New Delhi.